You're listening to the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast with Mark Allred, Court Lalonde, and Rob Tomlin. You can subscribe and rate our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Player.fm, SoundCloud.com, and Stitcher Radio. You can help the show financially by going to the blackandgoldhockeyblog.com website and clicking on either the Amazon.com or Fanatics.com banners to the right before shopping online. Now, time to start the Bruins hockey talk from 3 different countries. Enjoy the show.
Orr fights to keep it in. Does. Has it in the corner to Sanderson. Back in front to Orr. Shot. Scores! Bobby Orr!
Ray Bork. Scores! Ray Bork from the face-off circle to the right of Reggie Lemlin. Fired it down and Whitmore blew it.
Bounces down to Bergeron. He takes the space, pulling it wide to the right of Tatar. The snapshot over Mrazek. It's loose, and Bergeron scores! Patrice Bergeron!
Hey Bruins fans, welcome back for episode 79 of the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast in partnership with Grandstand Sports Network, the best view in sports. Court, we are 1 week away from having Rob back. Are you excited?
I am. I'm happy. I'm looking forward to hearing what he's got to tell us about this second vacation in a year. He goes from never going on vacation to having 2 in 1 year.
I know the podcast pays way too much, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, just not enough to get me a vacation.
Yes.
But we're looking forward to Rob coming back. He's going to be back in England on the 9th, which is tomorrow. So we will get him involved in the show again. But I'm absolutely stoked right now to have one of the better Boston sports writers and Bruins writer as a guest today, and we're thankful for the time. Our guest covers the Boston Bruins for CBSBoston.com, NHL.com, and is the author of the book 100 Things Bruins Fans Should Do and Know Before They Die. Mr. Matt Kalman, thank you for your time, and welcome to the Black and Gold Hockey Podcast.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, thank you for even saying yes. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're like, of course. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we are absolutely huge fans. Like I said in our off-air discussion, we love your writing. We share it. We use a lot of this stuff for topics on this program. So it's even better to have you here with us and joining us for some Bruins talk.
Yeah, great. Looking forward to it.
Nice. First and foremost, let's get to know you a little bit more and let the listeners know about you. How long have you been a Bruins writer?
I started covering the Bruins right after the lockout that wiped out the whole season in 2005, so I started in 2005.
Nice. And did you do anything before that? Any sports related?
Yeah, I've been a sports writer pretty much since I graduated college in 1997, and but then I fell into the Bruins job just because I started out writing about Hockey East for New England Hockey Journal, and then when the NHL came back from that lockout, I was the editor of the magazine, so I made myself the Bruins beat writer and went from there. And since then I've worked for New England Hockey Journal, ESPN Boston, NHL.com, like you mentioned. Pretty much anything I can find to write about the Bruins, I've been doing it.
Yeah, I saw today your latest article was posted through Yahoo.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually my Associated Press story. So we did a little midseason kind of looking back and forward for the Bruins this season. So yeah, that's what I did today, actually.
Now, you mentioned the New England Hockey Journal, so you must be very familiar with very well-known scout Kurt Ledecky.
Yeah, exactly. I knew Kirk. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, that I was the editor at the Hockey Journal. He was overseas, so I didn't get to like read a lot of his work and use a lot of his work at the time. And then he came back around the time that I left. So, but obviously I've run into him over the years and gotten to talk to him at about development camps and things like that. So yeah, I know Kirk pretty well.
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to him because he received a job over in the Omaha Lancers of the United States Hockey League as one of their scouts. So kudos to him for doing that.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, he's always wanted to do something like that, and for someone to get to do what they actually wanted to do is great, especially someone who spent so much of his life, protecting our country to come back and get a dream job like that. It's important.
Exactly. All right, Matt. So let's just jump right into it. I just want to get we wrote out a bunch of questions that we'd like to ask you, and let's just get started. I'll go first, and it pertains to goaltending because of the way everything's been going lately.
Oh.
No, and this isn't bad. I'm actually.
Oh no, we're two good supporters. So.
Yeah, and this is actually very positive, just because of the stats that I've been researching. Matt, the Bruins are currently ranked 3rd in the NHL when it comes to team goals against. So do you think that the tandem of Hudobin and Rask could challenge for the Jennings Trophy at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I guess how close is it right now? I don't know that.
LA's in first.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, it might be kind of tough because. It obviously, this goes to the whole, whether or not they're going to be successful the rest of the season. It'd be interesting to see in the second half now if this defense core can continue to hold up in front of these guys. I mean, they're both playing excellent this year, and they earned the numbers they've put up, and they've earned the right to be the 1 and 2 and to challenge for that trophy. But we don't know quite how this defense core is going to respond to a second half of an NHL season. We know Brandon Carlo was a rookie last year, ran into a little bit of a wall. Now you have him in the second year, and you have 2 rookies back there. You have 40-year-old Zdeno Chara. It's going to be interesting to see how much they're able to keep those goals against down going forward here. The schedule will get tougher. They won't have as much time off, and it's going to be a grind. But, yeah, I mean, clearly they're one of the top, at least top 5 goalie tandems in the league that can definitely, make a run for that kind of trophy.
Yeah, currently right now they're 3rd for goals against the Boston Bruins.
Right, and so LA's first, and who's second?
I'll get you that in a sec. I can pull up on Sportsnet. It just gives me the 3rd. I would assume Tampa, but I'd have to double check.
Oh, that's true. Right, obviously, that guy. His goals is under 2.
Yeah, Vasilevsky.
So, right. I mean, he might be do one of these things where he wins it on his own, but there's no extra prize for that award. I don't think they're going to it for it too much. It's all about the wins at this point, I guess.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, you kind of did a segue there. Speaking of Brandon Carlo, as you probably know on social media, there's a lot of rumors. Well, not rumors. I would just say fans wanting him to sit and or even be traded because they want to sell high. Where do you see his future as being part of the D on the right hand side?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'd want someone to be traded, but I obviously can see where you look at the depth chart and contracts and things like that, and you see, what the Bruins have to offer teams in a trade, and you have to think that he'd be a player that they would look to move at some point here. I mean, to me, the biggest one of their bigger needs right now is to have an experienced kind of 2-way top 4 D-man, and if it's going to be a right shot, he would be the perfect guy to kind of come out. I mean, he might even end up coming out of the lineup a little bit when they come back from the break to get Adam McQuaid some time, even if that's just to showcase McQuaid a little bit and show that he's healthy before you do something with him. But, and Brandon Carlo is an excellent defender, don't get me wrong, and I don't see a lot of offensive upside with him, but definitely an excellent defender who's going to get better. He needs to get a little meaner, but again, he's 22, I think, so he's still getting stronger. He's still getting a man's body, and that's why he would probably be coveted by another team as well as the Bruins. And there's just so many of these younger guys you can keep. You don't want to have so much youth on the back end and challenge for the cup. And I think at some point they have to make a decision about parting with some of the younger players and some of the picks to bolster the roster with veterans for now. I mean, if you're looking to win now, and I think when you have a core that's built around Krejci and Bergeron and Rask and Marchand, and they're all past 30. You have to be looking more toward the recent future rather than when Brandon Carlo might be hitting his stride as a a top 2D or something.
Hey, Matt, to follow up on that, I was reading an article 2 days ago on sportsnet.ca. Sonny Shativa wrote something about the Bruins are actively looking for a top 6 and a top 4 defenseman. So you just answered the question for Court and addressing the back end. Is there a need right now for the top 6 guy to come in with the way this team has been scoring?
Yeah, a top 6 forward, you mean?
Yes, that's what I meant.
I don't think so. I think, to me, the one kind of odd position is the third line center. I think even though Nash has played well and that line's been great, how long can that last? I mean, I just don't know that Riley Nash, as much as they like him, and I tend to like him too as far as his skill, and obviously he's a responsible player, but is he ever going to be that Nick Bonino type third line center that can, put up a lot of points and really put pressure on teams, not just defend? And, maybe with Backes there and the way Backes is playing, maybe it's kind of one of those lines that's dominated by a wing. But to me, I've been looking more in the top 9. Clearly, they wanted Spooner to be that guy, and they've obviously kind of abandoned that at this point. And that might be the one kind of, weak link in that forward group. But I don't think a top 6 guy on the forwards would do much of it in anything. It would kind of, I guess, who would you be taking out? Would you be taking out DeBrusk or Spooner? I don't think they're kind of looking for that. I think they want to get those guys to keep playing and gaining experience. And maybe we're seeing that maybe there's a chance Spooner has found his niche here, at least for the rest of this year, the rest of this contract that he has.
Now, keeping on with the trade, because everybody keeps wanting to talk, the other defenseman everybody wants to talk about is Torrey Krug.
Yeah.
Now, I personally don't see it. I still say to Mark, we had the perfect storm last year, and if Krug and our defense were there, we could have went far in the playoffs.
Sure.
What do you think about everybody talking about trading Krug now as well?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the obvious guy to move, I guess, because of his favorable contract and the fact that on a championship team, at least in the old formulation of it, he'd probably be a third pair guy who plays power play, and you'd have a stronger, bigger, bulkier top 4. And I'm not so sure that's the way the league is going right now. I think we've seen these last few weeks that they've not only been able to survive with him playing in the top 4, but with him and Grzelcyk playing in the same top 6. You never would have seen that maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, the way this league is going to speed and quickness. And the Bruins have been able to survive it just because those guys have played so well, and because the way they play doesn't lead to them being hemmed in a lot, and they're not defending a lot against bigger, stronger guys in front of the net and in the corners. But again, if you're going to clear a spot for a guy who is a legitimate top 4 kind of guy that can help you win now, he's another one that's probably a kind of an obvious candidate, especially if you think that Grzelcyk can kind of fill that role going forward, as far as the power play guy and playing on third pair. And if you're putting a good two-way defenseman there on that second pair, that kind of makes you, I think that gets closer to where you want to be as far as contending for the championship.
And touching back on Ryan Spooner and currently in his last year of his 1-year deal, is him and DeBrusk, is it comfortable for Krejci now to say that these are the guys he might want to work with in the future? Because I know he mentioned in previous seasons that he's shown some frustration with the evolving door of line mates and who works here and who works there. Do you see an extra contract coming maybe in another year for Ryan Spooner?
Yeah, I think that's going to depend on what happens these next few months as far as whether the Bruins like him and want him here. I mean, obviously, like I said they tried to project him as the third line center, and here they are plugging him in as a second line right wing, and he's had a little bit of success there. Kind of looks lost at times, and not really a guy you want to rely on winning those board battles that wings have to win. But I think Krejci's kind of happy with the way these guys are going. I know when it was DeBrusk and Bjork, he was genuinely excited to have those young guys because of how fast they are, and it's definitely a different look from the wings he's been successful with in the past. Those big, bulky power forwards he had, but that's the way the league has gone. Again, we're seeing how kind of some of these bigger guys are kind of falling by the wayside here. The game's passing them by, and it couldn't hurt for a 30-whatever-year-old Krejci is to have some young kids skating up the swings, getting fast, get down the ice fast, and getting open. And I think he kind of likes that. And if Spooner is willing to keep playing that role, and we've seen a little bit of that, even forechecking a little bit, that's not the worst thing. Of course, I kind of liked it when Spooner was between the kids for those couple of games. I think it was making him be more responsible and more aggressive, and at the same time. And I think who knows? Maybe if Bjork gets his game together in Providence, comes up, maybe they shuffle it again and find someone else to plug on Krejci's wings.
Fair enough. Matt, what has been your biggest surprise so far this year with the Boston Bruins? Because a lot of people, including myself, when we talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, we thought they were a fringe playoff team, and I know there's a lot of season left. Yeah. But here I live in Toronto, and they're going goo over the Boston Bruins over the last couple of weeks. It's been great for me to actually listen to the radio and then listen to the media, and all they talk about is the Bruins. What do you think the biggest surprise has been with them this year? Because I know they've surprised everybody else.
There's been so many surprises, but Danton Heinen producing the way he has to be very close to number one. From what we saw of him last year, coming in, he was the guy I kept forgetting when I wrote my previews and which guys would challenge for jobs. It was always DeBrusk and Bjork and Solaric, and people would always tweet me, "Oh, what about Heinen?" Oh, yeah, I forgot about him. Zarnik would be in that group. So just the fact that not only obviously that third line's working really well now, but when he was filling in on the top two lines, he didn't look out of place. He's got kind of like a little bit of that Bergeron thing where he kind of knows where to be and knows how to anticipate plays. And they talk about him winning more battles, but I think a lot of that is just his anticipation and his positioning and things like that. He's not plowing guys over or anything. And to have 30 points at this point of the year, I didn't see that coming. And and then you look at Charlie. Obviously, who the heck thought that he was going to? He's leading the team in 5-on-5 minutes, and he's leading all rookies in ice time by a million. But he's getting points now, and
even in Toronto today, they still have him as the Calder.
Exactly. He's just so good. There's no other way to explain it. It's the first time. When Tyler Seguin came in, didn't play that much, and but you'd see flashes of what they thought they were getting with that guy, and I never really was wowed by him and saying, "Oh, this is the next generational talent for the Bruins." But Charlie McAvoy, I kind of imagine this is what it was like when Ray Bourque came in, and some of my colleagues were, probably my age or a little younger, watching this guy and realizing that, 20 years later they were still covering the same guy. So you just watch the way he plays and think that he could just keep getting better. And it's just amazing the people, the way he skates and the way he doesn't back down, and just the way he's built at 20 years old. It's pretty amazing.
It's funny you say that. My dad actually meant been watching a couple games, and he said when Bourque first came to practice when they were on the Bruins, and they could all tell in training camp. Besides the fact that he was a little chunky, they could tell that he was that he was that generational player. They all knew right away that
exactly.
He was that guy. And my dad said when watching McAvoy a couple times this year, he's like, "Wow, that kid's good." I'm like, "I know." Yeah, it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, and what's funny too is that you mentioned being chunky, because I think Ray Bourque goes from junior to the NHL, and probably obviously there's a different era, a different generation of people. I think Charlie McAvoy, when I first saw him after the draft and he came to development camp, he seemed a little chunky to me.
Oh, yeah, he's got the round face.
Exactly, but I think going to college and working out 5 days a week or whatever it is they do between games there, and working with the BU training staff that's probably as good as a training staff as any professional team has, and then working with the development camp and working with the Bruins training staff off season, he clearly avoided being the chunky guy, and so now he's coming in like a fully formed person here, and instead of working it off while he's in the NHL, he's obviously in shape and strong and everything at this point. So that's probably the greatest thing that's happened for this team, is that they were able to get that jump on him and get him into form before they had to throw him in.
Matt, speaking of jump, we all know that the Bruins didn't start the 2017-18 campaign on the highest note, but lately they've come around to really make that jump right up the Eastern Conference standings. When it comes to what are your expectations for the remainder of the season, and are they built for a long playoff run?
Well, they're actually, I mean, not to take anything away from them, but they're positioned right for it, because if you look at it, and I was talking about this the other day with somebody, you finish in that second or third in the Atlantic, and you pretty much get a better draw than if Tampa Bay wins this division, because you could end up facing, Pittsburgh or Columbus or Washington in the first round.
Yeah, right.
The way this playoff system is, so I could see them winning a round or two if they get, if they keep playing like this and they stay healthy, and like you said earlier. I always think, and they don't bring it. I'm pretty impressed that they don't bring this up more often. Is that as much as this team was in kind of a rebuild mode? I mean, they nearly beat Ottawa without four defensemen. So
yeah, exactly.
You don't see that happen too often, and lose all those games by one goal. It's so funny that people, the Bruins, a lot of the fair weather fans or the talking heads with the Bruins haven't been good in how many years, and you look at them and you say, okay, but they got back to the playoffs last year and came so close with such a depleted lineup, and then never mind the defenseman, Krejci was out too, right? So it's like you look at that, they really to even fight that hard was pretty impressive, and so now if you actually go in the playoffs healthy and maybe they make a move at the deadline to solidify this a little bit, of course. They're built, and like I said, it helps that they're in this position where you really don't want to win this division. You're better off staying in your own division, facing a second or third place team, even if it's Toronto. I mean, I don't think Toronto really cares yet at this point.
No, but I live in Toronto, Matt. I just need to beat Toronto. Like, it's just so much easier on my life.
Yeah, well, I think that'll have to do with whether Toronto does anything at the deadline. Because if they keep the team as currently constituted, I'm not counting on them going even.
Oh, they don't. They have no defense.
Exactly.
That's all they talk about on the radio here is getting them defense. But for some reason, the Toronto Maple Leafs have been the Boston Bruins' kryptonite, because I'm well aware that I go to those games when they're in Toronto. We have not won in a really long time. It hurts.
Well, the playoffs are always a different animal, right? I mean, and you can always bring up 2013 and
for sure. I rub that into my friends' faces on a regular basis, because I was the guy who was sitting there. Yeah, I was the guy getting made fun of by everybody. Got his head down, and all of a sudden we just tie it up, and then we win the game. It's like it's like Christmas. Hey, question for you: if we won the cup, and that's a big if, I still think because it is, because you never know what can happen. You got to see the matchups. Right now, I agree with you. Looking at the matchups, I think even though we lost to Pittsburgh last night, I still think we match up better with Pittsburgh in the playoffs. We seem to get in their heads. Marchand 100% has always gotten the heads, and Rask usually plays well against Pittsburgh. But do you think the pundits would ever be happy with Rask regardless? Whether
well, they have to be. That's what they always say. That's the argument against everything about the Bruins. Oh, this guy's never won the cup, so he sucks.
But he has won a cup. I love Scott Darling's. Did you see his tweet the other day?
Oh, no.
Blackhawks, they've been tweeting so I guess Darling got chirped a little bit by our fans, just a little bit, and Darling sent back a tweet of his Stanley Cup ring from when he was a Blackhawk to the guy. The guy was like, well, you haven't done anything with your career, and he just tweets back a picture of his cup ring. And it was like, why can't Rask just do that? Anytime they say it.
Darling actually played that year, didn't he? I think he got some games in there.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so Tuukka was just the caddy that year, so.
Still got the ring.
Even when Timmy Thomas was having some games where you said, geez, any other coach would have pulled the goalie by now. But that was interesting, too. But, I mean, this whole idea of this cup means everything. I mean, the funny thing is that people are always comparing him to Carey Price. And how many has Carey Price won?
Oh, I know. It's crazy.
He has better career numbers.
Exactly. It's always Carey Price this, or they bring up Devin Dubnyk and Martin Jones. It's like
Braden Holtby.
Right, exactly. Clearly, it's just, let's face it, it's all about the clicks and the ratings and whatever, and it's the easiest position to criticize. Obviously in this town you don't know it anymore, but pre-Tom Brady, everyone ripped on the quarterback here all the time, no matter who it was, and it happens in every city. The quarterback, if he's going well, he runs the town, and if he has a couple bad games, they want to bench him. The backup quarterback is always the number one, the most popular player in every town. It's the same thing with the goalies, especially around here where you have a lot of non-hockey people talking hockey all the time. It's all they just look at the goalie because it's the position they can identify and it's the one they can watch because the game's so fast. And if they don't know the game, they don't understand the game. They don't know what else is going on and who's playing well and who's not. So just pick on the goalie, and everyone knows the goalie's name, so you get people to call in, and you just keep ripping on the goalie as much as you can.
They were actually making fun of that on Toronto radio a couple days ago, saying they were like, this is one of the worst trades the Maple Leafs have ever made by trading this guy. If we had this guy, we'd probably be a lot better right now. Like, if they really don't want him, we'll take him. Like, it makes me laugh. You watch TSN, you watch any Canadian hockey network, and they're all like, Rask is one of the best goalies in the league. But then I see social media. I'm lucky enough that I don't have to listen to the radio stations in Boston because I've heard they're brutal.
Right.
Rask is the worst thing in the world, and Tim Thomas is God.
Well, that's the funny thing is a lot of them still knock Tim Thomas too, but those are for different reasons. But I mean, you talk about Toronto. I mean, maybe there's like 4 or 5 teams in the whole league that wouldn't take him as their goalie. Mm-hmm. I mean, Columbus maybe, L.A., Montreal, but there aren't too many teams that have a goalie that's better than Tuukka Rask and that wouldn't trade theirs for Tuukka in a second. I mean, like I said, it's just easy fodder. It's not very heavy lifting to just criticize the goalie when they lose and say the team is playing great when they're winning. This way you can say that you're always against. This way, if you're always against Tuukka, this way you can never be accused of flip flopping.
Yeah. Because I was waiting for certain writers. As soon as the game was over, I'm like, well, yes. I know what his article is going to be this morning. I'm like, well, not going to read that one. There we go.
Yeah, People send me the screenshots.
Oh,
it's amazing
every
that
time.
One player can have a bad game, or I mean, be that player that is not all there, and just one game. The guy has been on a tear for like over a month. He's got like 11-0 and something record. And he's got one game, and then the ceiling's falling. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and it's just like every slump that he has, they decide he's the worst ever. I mean, you look at the time leading up to Khudobin taking those 3 straight starts. I mean, his numbers weren't great, but you look at some of the goals. To me, what epitomized Tuukka Rask at that point of the season was that goal that Anaheim scored, where they called a penalty on Chara and he gave up on the play and the guy banked the puck in off Chara. And what the heck was Tuukka Rask supposed to do about that? And it's just, you saw so many pucks going in off defensemen going in. I mean, then we saw the one against the Rangers where the one went off the glass. And so it's
yeah, he was having bad bounces.
Right? So people are going to, criticize him for all that. Now, is he above criticism? Of course not. Of course there's going to be some games where you say, wow, this goalie, he should have made some of these better saves. I mean, those two long shots last night were kind of bad, and then maybe that tying goal was one he should have had. But clearly, the last 3 years, people keep saying, but the last 3 years he's been bad, and then you look at the numbers, and that's not true. It's just something people are making up.
Right.
Yeah, it's always just like, but the numbers are real. I don't know what you're going with here. They're like, well, no, that's not true. No, that's a fact.
Right.
It's like when people dismay science. I'm like, no, it's a real thing.
Well, maybe living in Toronto, you don't know quite what we're going through down here about facts.
Oh, come on. In Toronto, it's all about the Toronto Maple Leafs. We've had many parades, many parades since '67. For some reason, no cups in them, but there's parades.
Matt, I'm a huge fan of development, and I believe that Don Sweeney has done a masterful job with acquiring talent through youth with his position as the I lost it. Before he became the general manager, he was what was he?
It's like assistant GM and
hockey operations.
Yes. And I write a lot about the Bruins prospects, but and a lot of people are taking this Anders Bjork. I'm not even going to say the word demotion because I don't believe it's a demotion because he played bad. I believe that a move like this is to continue him playing and skating, and he should not be one of those players that are on the ninth floor watching all the time.
Exactly.
So. And so far, he seemed to be very professional about it. I've heard a couple interviews, and he seems very positive. I don't know if that's just because it's the media and so on, but I want to know your feelings on how he can benefit from this and the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it's a great sign that he's, like you say, he's taking it maturely, and it's also a great sign that they were willing to do this move. You never know what a guy is promised when he signs and comes out of school, and so. Luckily, clearly, they didn't make some sort of commitment to say he'd be in the NHL all year, depending on how things went. So, There's nothing wrong with playing in the American Hockey League. So many guys have done it and gotten better. We've seen what Jake DeBrusk has done since spending the whole year down there last year, and
the guy you just forgot again, Danton Heim.
Exactly. So there you go. I think it goes also to what I've really been struck by this the last few weeks talking to people. Not only have they drafted good players, but these guys have good character, and I think. DeBrusk and Heinen, I think they both accepted that maturely last year as far as staying down there. And, it's DeBrusk especially. I mean, there were times where they probably could have used him, but it wouldn't have been good for him, I guess, in their minds. And you look at Matty Grzelcyk this year and what he did going down. And then, I actually saw the last game he played in Providence. I was actually down there, and I could see that he had obviously decided, I'm going to play the best I can and enforce their hand here. And clearly he did that. And so, it's not surprising that Anders Bjork would say, I'm going to go down there and I'm just going to play hockey as hard as I can and I'll be back soon. And the fact is, I don't expect him to be down there too long. If he had a good weekend this weekend, if he has maybe one more weekend like that, he could be back in the NHL just like that. They liked his game. I think he was getting, Bruce Cassidy kept using the term that he was getting lost. And it wasn't that he was lost on the ice, it's that he was lost on the bench. If you had a special teams game where there was a lot of PK, PP, he wasn't playing. And you can't have that. That's not going to get him into a groove there. Like you said, he can't be in the ninth floor either. So if he can find his game down there and come up, maybe they throw him on that second power play again, or just find more ways to use him 5-on-5, and he'll be right back in there. And like I said, it sounds great that he's got that attitude, and it's just not surprising with these guys. They've really done their homework on what types of kids these guys are.
So. What do you think so far, Matt, has been the biggest disappointment in the Boston Bruins? Because there hasn't been many of them. We had Tuukka playing iffy at the beginning of the year, and then he stood on his head and was player of the month, but still supposed people want him traded. And then you have Bjork struggling, but he was playing great until he got injured. But and you've had Cassidy, who a lot of people thought, he's not going to be the coach we all thought he was from last year, and he's if it wasn't for Vegas doing what they're doing, he'd probably win the Jack Adams.
Right, exactly. It's hard to find a disappointment in a team that's fourth in the league in points per game when they were supposed to be marginal. I mean, I guess you could say a little bit of Carlo's game, and I don't mean those
sixth. I don't mean per game, third in goals against, 11th on power play, and 9th in penalty kill.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, to say, I would say maybe you'd like to see Brandon Carlo add maybe some offensive flair to his game. And I'm not even talking about some of those egregious giveaways that he's had that led to goals this year. I just mean that sometimes he's a little overwhelmed. And I think maybe he needs to be a little more aggressive with his shot. We saw it last night. He got some shots through, got that assist on the Achari goal. So that was a great sign, but maybe that's pretty much it so far, I guess. I mean, maybe that, like you said, that Tuukka slow start was maybe a little disappointing because he had the groin surgery, and so you figured coming in healthy he would start off hot and didn't. But Bruce Cassidy diffused that. He went with the hot hand, which is something that not a lot of coaches would have done in his position, and it worked out. Luckily for him, Khudobin did the job, but not too many things disappointing this year so far.
Matt, as you know, in the Bruins' history, the team has been known as a defensive strong team throughout their franchise since 1924, with Eddie Shore and Bork and all these other players that came through. Bobby Orr. Yeah, thanks, buddy. Wow. That was a great assist, my friend. But and most recently with Coach Claude Julien, I in his tenure, I noticed that it almost like he was running like a 60-40 defensive team. Now, with the insertion of Bruce Cassidy as a first-year head coach, and even the 18 games that he was involved in last season as an intern, do you see that number flipping at all to be a little more offensive?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe like if you're saying 60-40 on the Claude, then maybe it's like 55 45, 53, 40. It's, there's still so much emphasis on defense. And let's face it, a lot of their offense comes from defense. I mean, for as great as that Bergeron line is offensively, a lot of their stuff comes from playing well in the defensive zone or playing strong in the neutral zone. I mean, you got to do it. People that complained about Claude all the years, look at the teams that win. The teams that win play defense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the oldest cliche in the book in every sport, right? Defense wins championships. You have to commit to it. Now, did the Bruins maybe the last year and a half under Claude go maybe 70-30 defense? Mm-hmm. Maybe they did, and some of that has to do with personnel, and some of them has to do with a stubborn coach and whatever. But it's easy to look. It's easier to look like they're going more for offense when they have more offensive talented players. You look at this team right now with the fourth line even has some skill, some guys with some hands. It's a different look, but it's still a lot of defense, and there's a lot of clearly it's a defense. It's a lot easier to look defensively too when Charlie McAvoy's back there doing what he does. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Everything just looks so much better when that kid's back there. So.
Well, speaking of the coaching staff and sort of the management, but if you could give a letter grade to what Sweeney and Co. and Cassidy and his team have done this year, what would it be, and why? Obviously. Well,
I guess Cassidy's an A. I mean, you can't, like you said, he's the Jack Adams runner-up right now to Gallant. I mean, there's no way anyone can say that
it's unfortunate,
exceeding expectations by a lot, and we'll see how. I guess we'll see if this Vegas thing really keeps going, right? So who knows? And Sweeney, he hasn't done that much, but I guess when you look at it, if you're going to extend the grade back over the couple of years here and what he's done to put these kids in these positions, and I guess you give him credit for getting Charlie and Anders out of college, which could have been a disaster, especially with Anders. If he went back to school, you risk losing him. So a B+ is type of grade for him, I guess. He's a lot of this has to do with the players. I mean, these guys that they all said that they were going to rely on, the Brest, the Heinens, the Bjorks, the McAvoy, Grizzly. These are the guys they wanted to give a chance to. And I guess what he didn't do is the best grade. He didn't go out and sign a Drew Stafford or some bum like that to clog up the works. He brought in one or two guys, I guess, on invites this camp. But otherwise, they really stuck to their guns on giving the kids a chance, and the kids took advantage of it.
Man, I like I said before, I'm a huge fan of the developing youth, and I've been watching a player like Jesse Gabriel with Brandon in the Western Hockey League with Regina, and I also schedule my vacations around a 4-day event of development camp, so I get to I get to see these kids show their skills in non-game action. So. Right. But seeing him play in the Western Hockey League, I was really excited to see him sign the entry-level deal in December of 2016 and come to the Providence Bruins. But it's been kind of disappointing in him to see him struggle. And I still believe in his talents. But the one thing I wanted to ask you about what happened recently is why didn't the Bruins keep him at a pro level and just bring him down to the East Coast Hockey League with the AAA affiliate, the Atlanta Gladiators, instead of? Yeah. I mean, we know his rights were traded from Brandon, I believe, to Regina.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, I just don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually gotten the chance to talk to anybody about that yet, just because it just happened, and with the bye week, people are out. I would assume that I guess when he gets to Regina, they're gonna kind of cast him in a bigger role. And maybe ask him to do some things, be a bit of a scorer there. I assume he'll get a lot of minutes. And you send the guy to the East Coast League, that could be a little dangerous for a player, I guess, because there's a lot of people there fighting for their lives, and so things can get a little out of hand. And when you play the style game Jesse Gabriel does, you probably don't want him running into some 30-year-old career minor leaguer and getting cold clocked or something like that.
Right.
So,
no, I understand.
Not to mention, who knows? I'm not sure how Atlanta's doing this year, if they're any good. I mean, it's probably the best experience to play for a team that I guess even if they don't have a great season, they're going to be in the Memorial Cup. And it never hurts to kind of butter up some of the junior hockey people and some down the road if it might pay off in signing a free agent or something like that. But that's my guess, is that they just figure that's a better role for him to go down there and really get a lot of ice time.
Almost like what Ron Hextall's doing in Brandon, pretty much taking all their players.
He's doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, right, yeah, right. Yeah, I guess wasn't it? I guess Toronto does that with London, right? Is that how it works?
Yes, because the Hunter brothers are there.
Right,
now.
exactly. So it never hurts to do that. I mean,
There's some good hockey out here in Ontario.
Right.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Exactly. So I think at this point for Jesse Gabriel, they know what they have there, and I'm guessing too is that in Providence they just got too crowded. I mean, once they sent Solaric and Bjork down there, the ice time had to kind of be limited there, and they didn't want him to do that. They want him to to get going, and I'm not sure about the timing of the Memorial Cup, but I guess he could possibly be back for Providence playoffs, and be in camp next year and ready to challenge for a job again.
Yeah, the Memorial Cup would be before Providence playoffs.
Exactly. So, and then and you look at the fourth line now, how great it's doing. But I think Schawler's a free agent, so you're not going to give him too much of a raise if you're going to keep paying your big names. So Jesse Gabriel will be right there in the mix for a fourth line job next year's training camp.
Holy segue again. If you were Sweeney, what would you try and do this summer? Would you try and sign McAvoy in the offseason to an extension as quickly as possible? And you've got Nash. Are you willing to give him more than a year solely based on the fact that we've been talking about this on the podcast? You've got McAvoy, Heinen, Carlo. You've got all these guys that are coming up in the next 2 years that, to me, that's going to be Sweeney's tenure, what he's going to do in the next 2 years with this hockey club.
Right. I
Who
mean,
do you give the extensions to?
Well, McAvoy, obviously, that's a no-brainer. You got to just get that done, whatever it takes. I mean, don't even mess around with it. I mean, he clearly wants to be here, but when you figure how much he would love a Rangers offer sheet, you just got to get him locked up. I mean, seriously.
Do you think it's possible that you can pull because Eichel and McDavid and all these guys have signed their extensions before?
Yeah.
So do you think Sweeney will actually try this summer to put McAvoy to paper?
I think he'll try, and then it'll be up to whether ownership is willing to really go deep. I mean, you're talking, if you're going to sign this kid, you're going to do it, 7 or 8 years? Mm-hmm. And that's going to go past the CBA. That's going to go way past this CBA. So is Jeremy
starting with the 6 probably?
Exactly. So is Jeremy Jacobs going to be willing to lock up a guy that we don't know what, I'm sure Jeremy Jacobs is somewhere thinking that he's going to reduce the salary cap even more in the next CBA, after the 3-year lockout or something. So it'll be up to ownership, I guess, to really show that. But and then to talk about Nash, I think that's something you got to just see how the summer plays out. I mean, you got to see what strides some of these guys have made. Forsbacher, Carlson, people like that, Spooner. Riley Nash has got to be an afterthought as far as where he would fit in. I mean, there's just too many guys, and you don't want to. This is the thing everyone criticized Chiarelli about, right? Bringing back the bottom guys, and giving them raises. You can't afford to do it, and that was Sweeney's MO. He said I'm going to have a farm system that I can keep plugging guys in that are cheaper, so I can pay the McAvoys and Heinens of the world and Carlos. So that's really good. It's really pretty much the philosophy here is that, next year Riley Nash should be replaced by a Forsbacher, Carlson or someone like that. And so I wouldn't, be too quick on the trigger with that guy.
Yeah, it's funny because anytime you see so they're like, oh, we got to make this trade, bring in this guy. And I was like, have anybody looked what's going to happen in the next 2 years? Because all these guys everybody's happy about, they won't have any room to sign these guys.
Exactly.
Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm sure in the next 2 years, it is crazy the amount of ECLs that end.
Right, exactly. I just don't like to get too caught up in that, just because at some point they do have to also just say, screw it, let's go for it, let's add a player, and then we if you end up in a Chicago situation, it kind of stinks. But Chicago's won the cup 3 times, so it's like you gotta kind of weigh both sides of that, and so
good with the bad.
Exactly.
When it comes down to Olympics, I know that's coming up soon. Are you disappointed in the NHL not participating? And to follow that, I know that you see Ted Donato a lot as a parent at development camps for the past couple of seasons. How do you think the moment is for him to see his kid as a U.S. Olympian?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I'm sure Teddy's excited. Just like my favorite thing was that video with the Billy Butler and his dad.
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome.
Right? It's like I remember covering those two. I'm not sure what his dad still does, if his dad still coaches at Marlboro High, but he played for his dad at Marlboro High. I actually covered those guys in the state tournament and stuff, and that's a great moment for a guy. You look at some of these guys that they thought they were just going to be playing out the string, and the minors are overseas, and now they get to go to the Olympics. It's great for them. But the fact that Ryan's going is awesome because I mean it's just another way to kind of improve his game. They talk about competition, and it's kind of weird maybe that he's still in school because some other team probably would have forced him to come out by now. But luckily the Bruins were deep enough to not have to do that. And actually, that's another guy we're talking about. Riley Nash. I mean, Ryan Donato next year could be a third line center. Who knows? And
he's on fire. I mean, he's got 14 games under his belt, and he's got at least a point in every one of them. And he's that career numbers.
Exactly, and so it's great that he's going to go over there. And there was that one rumor, I guess, that he was going to come out after this season and play in the spring, and who knows? He might be there, just like Charlie. I mean, it's not likely because I don't think you throw a forward like that into the fire of NHL playoffs the way you did with Charlie when you were completely desperate to do it. But obviously, a guy again who's next year I think is going to come out and he's going to be pushing for a job. And it's great for him. Sad for everybody else because it really doesn't make much sense for me to not market the National Hockey League in Korea. I understand the Olympic Committee wasn't doing everything the NHL wanted to do and stuff, but it's just missing another opportunity to hit another market and kind of make the sport, obviously to also please the players. And we know how much they're disappointed that they're not going, but
they got their bye week, right?
Right, exactly.
It's funny when you think about it. They fought for a bye week when really they should have fought to stay in the Olympics when they didn't realize that, Korea is not a viable market for the NHL to make money. So why would they want the players to go?
Yeah, it just baffles me. I don't get it. But Gary Bettman's a super genius, and I'm not. So
hey, I was at an NHL alumni dinner this year, and I was more than shocked on how the perception when we see Gary Bettman out, everybody's booing him. The fans are always booing him, and at the dinner, the players were applauding him and thanking him. Mm-hmm. Because when you think about it, for the players, as much as we all think he's doing terrible, he's made them a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean he's made them a lot of money, but I'd say that they could make a lot more. And if you look at when I go to an NBA game or I read about an NBA story and see what some of these guys are making, but you see the numbers that get thrown around in baseball, and you see what's getting thrown around in hockey, and you see the hard time that a lot of these free agents have getting contracts in the offseason and getting under the cap, and the fact that teams that develop these players and like Chicago and LA and whoever else is develop these players and they have to get rid of them in 3 years, or what we're going to see with Edmonton and Toronto in the next couple of years, it's not conducive to rewarding success, and it's not conducive to players maximizing their money. And we'll see if it hurts the league. I mean, what's better for the league than super teams where you can have Draisaitl, McDavid, and whoever playing on great teams, or Matthews and Nylander and these guys, these great teams, or just going to have these mediocre teams where everybody has to give people up. It'll be interesting to see if that's the business model that really works.
And trust me, living here in Toronto, we have the highest ticket in the league,
right?
And that's in Canadian dollars, and it's still that you're not even doing the conversion. Yep. Like it costs for the cheapest seat in the house, it's over $100 Canadian for the cheapest seat in the house, and I'm talking about you are literally touching the back wall,
right?
And it sells out every game. So yes, they are. He's done some. He hasn't done some Allen Eagles and things to the players, but yes, there is money out there that 100% just being in Toronto, knowing how much it costs.
Right, and
it's cheaper for me to come to Boston. Mind you, I don't pay my tickets when I come to Boston, but still, it would be cheaper if I bought face value tickets to come to Boston or go to a game in Toronto.
Right, and right now people in Toronto are buying those tickets, but are they going to buy them if the Leafs have to lose, Marner and Riley, and then become like kind of a mediocre team, or will they spend those money to see a team that's challenging for the President's Trophy every year? It's like.
I'd say in Chicago, no. In Toronto, they paid for mediocre for the last 40 years. So
right, exactly.
Pretty sure they'd pay for who on a stick skating around the rink. So,
Matt, the last question for at least me. I want to talk about the book, and I find it a fantastic read for the fact that I'm a blogger, and I when I can't find anything to read about or a topic that interests me, I go flipping through that book and I always find something interesting. So it's my go-to, and thank you for writing it. And to plug it real quick, the book can be bought at Amazon.com and the Barnes & Noble store or the website, and it's called
Or Amazon.ca.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And it's 100 things Bruins fans should know and do before they die. What inspired you to put this all together, and how long did it take?
Well, you know what's funny is that I was actually approached by the publisher because it's a series, and they actually have. That was the first hockey one that was ever written, but they had some for some other sports, some college teams and stuff. And it actually only took me, unfortunately, only took me like 9 months that they gave me to do it. I would have liked to have some more time, but it was pretty, intense 9 months to get that done and talk to so many people and think of so many things. And there's some things I think that you look back in retrospect that I should have maybe done a little differently, but
like put in who the shortest player ever to play on the team was.
There you go.
Get in there. Come on, just get my dad in the index. Come on.
But I think it ended up being a pretty fun experience, and getting Mike Milbury to write the foreword for me was great because it's always good to talk to Mike and get him to tell you some stories and stuff.
Did he hit you with a shoe?
No, he did not, actually. That only comes up like every other time I see him. But yeah, I got to talk to some pretty cool people for that, and got some pretty good feedback from it. So it was great.
Do you have anything else in the works as a book in the future?
Well, there is a book coming out in the fall. It's gonna have my name on it, but I've only kind of been a co-author there. So it's actually Dale Arnold his book is coming out. So
oh, nice.
I kind of helped him put that together. So he's got a little book of stories of the Bruins inside the locker room, press box type thing. So that'll be coming out in the fall. We just finished that up, and then hopefully something else will come up in the works at some point.
Awesome.
So I got two more, so I don't want to keep you that long. Who do you think right now so far would be the seventh player award for the Bruins? Because everybody's saying McAvoy,
right?
But there are a lot of candidates this year.
Yeah, I think the fans, based on what they've done the last 10 years or so, it's going to be McAvoy, and it's hard to argue with that. I didn't, he certainly exceeded my expectations. I mean, that playoff series was great, but it's one thing to do it with on adrenaline against Ottawa. It's another to do it in the NHL, every night the way he's done it. And so he's definitely exceeded expectations. But Danton Heinen is, he's creeping up on him there. He's fifth in rookie scoring and definitely exceeding expectations too. And I bet they never do release the actual vote for whatever reason. I guess Nesson keeps that in their vault somewhere. But I bet if things keep going the way they're going and McAvoy wins it like everyone expects, I bet Heinen will cut into his vote total a little bit.
Come on, stuff the ballots for Tuukka and see how much the reporter at Nesson gets really pissed off.
Yeah, exactly.
A lynch mob.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of the Corbin acts. Although, actually, you know what? It's funny, though, if you say that, but clearly we talk about this anti-Tuukka sentiment, but it's really relegated, at least in my circles, it's relegated to social media and to a couple of wise guy reporters. I mean, I talk to people who aren't on social media, who go to the games, big fans. They have no idea what I'm talking about if I bring up the fact that Tuukka is being criticized. You know what I mean? So
I totally, when I tell people in Toronto, I'm like, oh, people in Boston, they're all over Tuukka. They're like, why? Exactly. Like, I don't know. Like, then again, people in Toronto were all over Phil Kessel. I'm like, oh, I don't know what. The guy gets you 30 goals a year. He's in the top 10 in scoring, but he sucks. I'm like, okay.
And the hot dog contest, he wins.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, that started in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
And then my last question to you, Matt, because you're obviously a fan of the Bruins. How do you separate yourself from Matt Kalman, the fan, from Matt Kalman, the reporter?
I'm actually not a fan, actually. I mean,
no, eh?
Yeah,
there you go.
I didn't grow up here, and probably hated the Bruins more than they didn't hate them, but didn't really have an opinion of them. As a kid, I was kind of a Buffalo fan, even though I grew up in New York City. So,
the Bruins, got the French connection line. That was good,
right? Exactly. So I'm not really a Boston sports fan at all. I don't root for any of the teams, and so that made it easy.
that makes it way better that you stand up for two. Like, that's awesome. I'm like the only Boston fan out in Toronto.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, no one in my family. It's like everybody's anti-Leafs. It's the thing we do.
Funny.
Well, my dad's a Habs fan. My dad was playing for Atlanta when I was born, so I can't be Atlanta Flames fan. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And then we moved to Boston, so I'm like, I guess I'm a Bruins guy.
Good choice.
Worked out for me.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us. I can't believe we've had you for an hour. That just went by so fast. Anybody on Twitter, you can follow Matt at Matt Kalman. And you can also, if you don't do the Twitter thing, please, if you do Facebook, please go to the Facebook page, Matt Kalman Writing. He supplies a lot of his articles there and is very interactive with fans. So definitely check it out. Again, Matt, thank you very much for the time. This was really awesome. We'd love to have you back on sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. No problem. Thanks a lot for having me.
Hey, it's awesome.
Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll be back shortly. Hey, guys, that was an absolutely incredible interview with Matt Kalman. I definitely recommend you follow him on any of the available social media that he's on. He's a great writer, and I can't believe we had him for about an hour. But we are back to discuss last week's games a little bit. The Bruins beat the New York Islanders 5-1 on the road. The Thursday game against the Florida Panthers was unfortunately postponed due to the snowstorm. And the Saturday game at home against Carolina was an absolute blowout, a 7-1 victory for the Bees. And then last night's game, which we really wanted to talk about before this god-awful bye week, which I don't understand, is the play of Patrice Bergeron. I don't even give a crap that they lost in overtime. I mean, they really fought back to get to where they were and earn that point. But just the effort that Bergeron put in there, a 4-goal effort, a 7-point night. Sorry, no, I'm wrong. No. He's got 7 points in the last 3 games.
Correct. That's how he got first star of the week.
Yeah.
First star. He also got his first 4-goal game and his second hat trick since 2000 and what was it? It's a long. I didn't even.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I'm a stat guy, and I just threw that one at the window. I think it was 2000 is like right when he broke into the league, right at the beginning. He made a joke that he hadn't done it since he hadn't had a 4-goal game since he was 16.
16, yeah, that's what he said. Yeah. So if he plays another 16 years, we're expected to get another 4-goal effort. But
and also, what about Bergeron? Is Patrice Bergeron? He had a hole in his knee and came back last game. And thank God Marchand has come back. Like the line just all of a sudden clicked in the last 2 games. Yes, we lost the last game, but we got a point. We haven't lost in regulation since December, I think, 11th or 10th. I'll double check right here. But we haven't lost in regulation. Like, I understand. You know what? We'll be the first to say Tuukka didn't play well last night. But it's crazy, and I know you agree with me, Mark. He's the reason we went to overtime, but he's the reason we got the point, if that makes any sense. He's the reason it is what it is, but he's also the reason the Bruins got a point out of that game. Yeah,
absolutely. It happens. I mean, the thing is it's a back-to-back. I mean, the Bruins have traditionally been not good in the second game of a back-to-back. So
since we lost to Vegas, we haven't lost in regulation.
Right. And that was, how long ago was that?
The 15th of December.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I just...
Oh, sorry, that's wrong. I'm looking at October. Someone can correct me. I'm totally wrong there. Washington, sorry, the 14th of December.
Yeah. But it's one loss. I just don't understand why everybody thinks the ceiling's going to... And it's Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh's a very tough team. You got Crosby, Malkin, you got Connor Sherry, you got all these guys, and you know, it's just, it happens. I mean...
And Crosby was on his game last night. Same with Malkin, their game.
And he was taking it hard, too, man. I mean, there was a couple hits that I thought, ooh, they're going to get called. And he was looking for a call, too, from a referee that was like 15 feet away. And it was still
Krejci.
Nothing.
There was that one time Krejci should have definitely had called a penalty. But it is what it is, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, everything is looking good so far, and the team seems like it's clicking. I wanted to ask Matt about the message, but I just feel like the veteran leadership on this team mixed in with the youth are really adhering to what Cassidy and Kevin Dean and Pandolfo and Sacco are all, trying to install into their heads about being a family, moving forward as a team, and accomplishment and competitiveness. You know what I mean? Everything looks good, and I'm proud to say that. I wasn't on board with all those big words that I'm using right now back in October and early November. I was very optimistic, and I'll admit that. But this is the right time, and I keep saying that, I know, but this is the right time to start getting on a roll and to get that goal of a second round playoff appearance and maybe further. Who knows?
Yeah, please beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. Please.
Yeah, exactly. So it's exciting, and we're gonna take this bye week, this 5 days of a mandatory break off, and then come right back into it on a Saturday night game, and I believe that's Hockey Night in Canada game.
It is. Well, no, it's Sportsnet.
Sportsnet.
Well, it is Saturday Hockey Night in Canada. It's just not the CBC game, but it's still for our American listeners out there. You will get the educated Canadian guys doing the play-by-play in between periods. So you're gonna hear some things. You're gonna be like, wow, they're not pro everybody. They're talking about hockey in an intelligent way. Sorry,
That's all right.
I know people love the Nesson guys, and Peterson. Those guys are good. It's just those guys are decent. But when you watch some of these, it just scares me. Like Jeremy Roenick, guy played in the league for years, and some of the things that come out of his mouth, I'm just like, really?
Yeah, exactly.
He's way too pro player sometimes. I find so. It is what it is. But there's not much you can do about it.
But with the way that the Bruins are playing, and then the way that the Montreal Canadiens are playing, even with a healthy Carey Price, it's going to be an exciting road game. And the Bruins play Montreal 3 times in a week and a half span. So I think this is going to be a great game. I'm really looking forward.
You're going to one of them, right?
I am. I was fortunate enough to receive tickets from a very, very nice listener. And I am going to the 17th game, the game on the 17th, and that is a home game against Montreal, and I'm absolutely pumped and overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed that this gentleman reached out and offered them to me. So I will get him more involved, hopefully soon, in his name. So I want to ask permission first. You know what I mean? I just don't want to blab on his name. So.
And I want our listeners to realize when we're talking about the Bruins playing the Leafs in the first round, the Montreal Canadiens and the teams that are below the Bruins and the Leafs would almost have to play a better record than what the Boston Bruins did when they did the coaching change last year. Yeah. It's almost perfect hockey they have to play. It's not saying the Bruins are going to 100% make the playoffs. But I believe they were talking about it on Hockey Central today, and the Bruins just have to play 600 hockey.
Oh, and
for the rest of the season, that's it. I want them to play what they're playing right now and keep it going, but it's a lot better look.
The month of the remaining games in the month of January are not going to be much easier. I mean, you come back from Montreal on Saturday night. You play Dallas at home. Mm-hmm. Montreal, the Islanders, Montreal, the Devils, Ottawa, and you end the month of January on the 30th with a home game against the Anaheim Ducks. So,
don't forget there's some back-to-backs in there too.
Oh yeah, there's a back-to-back on the 17th, 18th, Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal and Islanders. The good news is it's 2 weaker teams, but the good news is as well the Toronto Maple Leafs have a very bad schedule coming up as well.
Yeah, so. I mean, we still could, bottleneck it down to a Bruins and Maple Leaf series, which I would absolutely love. And to be honest with you, I know you have.
It's just the whole dealing with people. But anyways.
Yeah, I know, I got you. But I think that we're going to call that a show. I do have some clips that I'm going to add on, so please stick around, folks. I interviewed Mike Matros, and he is the curator of the Heroes Cup hockey tournament. And this is a tournament about the fire department, police, military, and EMS. It's all about those guys and honoring them in this tournament. There's 82 teams this year. This is the second annual, and the first annual they had 52. So they grabbed 30 more teams, and it's in Marlboro, Massachusetts, at this huge ice center, which holds 8 rinks. And I think I'm going to be there to cover it for the podcast as he asked me to. So stay for that. And also, I got in touch with I was feeling a little. I had a couple drinks, so I'll put it that way. I got some fan interaction with a good guy. His name is Ian Kelly, and we talked for about 40 minutes about his feeling as a fan, and not as a podcast host or a writer, just a regular guy that loves the Boston Bruins, and he's from Florida, which kills me that these Bruins fans are freaking everywhere. So, and
he's a good guy, but that means also, by doing the math there, get ready for the longest episode ever.
Yeah, probably. So, all right, we're going to end that.
Maybe you could do that second interview. You could use it for next week when we're probably going to be off, because there's not much to talk about besides dead air.
All right, so I might. Which one? The Heroes Cup?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, if you do this and Matt, that's a lot.
Yeah,
I'm going to edit what we're talking. I'm just telling you, because think about it. If you're reading on your hearing on your phone,
right,
you might give up at the stuff at the end. I'm just saying.
Okay, yeah, we might do that. We might move the Mike Matros interview to the following week, but we'll get Ian on. We'll probably just do that. And I'm not going to do a prospect preview this week. Just been kind of crazy, and with the
saying, fill it in.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yep. All right. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. Thank you so much to Matt Kalman again. That was just a class act, and what a great conversation. So
awesome.
We look forward to having him on.
I didn't know he wasn't a Sabres fan.
I know. I didn't either. I did not know that either. Actually, when I contacted him from Woburn, Mass, I thought he was originally from there. But you learn so much when you talk to people. So. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Please do the Patreon thing. Follow us on the many podcatchers that we're on, and social media. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. Hey, Bruins fans, it's Mark. I have a very special guest on this afternoon, and this is a subject that is very close to me. As many of you guys know, or might not know, I'm a very, very I find public safety to be very important, whether it be the fire department, the police department, EMS, or our nation's military. And recently, this gentleman that I'm going to be talking to, and I'm going to welcome in just a moment, reached out to me to see if we could help him promote this. And I thought, first and foremost, absolutely, because, like I said, it's very important. So. The gentleman's name is Mike Matros, and he is the founder of the Heroes Cup hockey tournament, which is it was a great success last year, and this is the second annual tournament coming up in April. Mike, how are you?
For having me on.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I really appreciate that, and like I said, I find all these areas of public service to be a very important asset to everyday life, and to have to know that these people are there for you when in most trouble and needs is just a fantastic service. So, and what you do and what you bring to this fantastic tournament, I just thought that it'd be great to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you want me to just start with telling you a little bit about the tournament, or?
You just go right ahead, man.
All right, you got it. So, last year was our first year as a tournament, and the tournament was started because 2 years ago I was running the Boston Marathon for the Last Call Foundation, and that was because a Boston firefighter died in the line of duty. His mother created a foundation to make the job a little safer so guys could come home at the end of the day. I ran the marathon for them. Ultimately, the first year was a huge success for the tournament. or a single game. And then the following year, last year, we created a tournament out of it because at that funeral, I saw people from around the world coming in to pay their respects. And unfortunately, I wanted to put together an event that didn't revolve around a funeral. So all these guys coming to Boston to come see us and hang out with us when it doesn't involve a line of duty death. So that's where I got, so what better way than come up with through hockey? So last year, just through Facebook and through spreading the word and through the networking, we created the Heroes Cup, and a group of volunteer board. We got together and had a lot of meetings and planned out a tournament. In our first year, we had 52 teams. And that same weekend that was going on was also the NHL alumni weekend going on. And somehow we managed, being a bunch of firefighters and police and military guys, we managed to overshadow the Bruins at the NHL alumni event, and in return ended up creating a really, really good friendship out of it. And now for the second year coming up this April, the tournament will double in size, 82 teams, and now we're partnered with the Boston Bruins for this event. So this year will be the 2018 Be Fit Heroes Cup presented by the Boston Bruins Foundation. So it's pretty exciting. It's a way to certainly feed to a lot of fire, police, military charities. We have all of our teams are all playing for charities of their own choice. Some of them are playing for kids with cancer. Some of them are playing for a fallen firefighter, or playing for veteran suicide awareness. Whatever issues are relevant to that team is what they're playing for. Our goal is to just get them together, play some hockey, and promote charity throughout the weekend. And with taking the structure of that, of like the Boston Marathon, but applying it to hockey and first responders. And with the New England Sports Center in Marlboro, we have a very good complex right here in Mass that has 8 full-size rinks under one roof, which actually is one of the only spots in the country that has such a big rink to facilitate that all under one roof. And it worked out to our advantage, but this year should be a ton of fun, to say the least.
That's awesome. And the all the charities are just top notch, and it just seems like a very well thought of and well planned tournament. And I'm actually writing down on my calendar to be in appearance. Can fans and spectators come and watch also?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have we have events throughout the whole weekend. The tournament starts on April 20th, Friday, April 20th. There, all of our teams will come in. Every team will play one game. Friday night, we have our big opening ceremonies, which again is open to the public. This is where all of our teams kind of come together. We will have pipes and drums bands. We'll have the honor guard. Last year we had Renee Rancourt doing the national anthem. I don't know if we're going to have Renee back or we'll do something different, but I'm sure Renee is always a favorite amongst the crowd, and showing off the Bruins ring and stuff is always kind of a good time. So we'll have him as well as a bunch of celebrities and affiliates with the Bruins. And we'll have our fire department, pipes and drums band playing a little bit. And then after that, we'll have a band Pieces of Eight playing just throughout the whole night. And it'll be certainly a well-received party to kick off the weekend. And then Saturday, every team will play 2 games. Saturday night, we have kind of like a tailgating party where we do, cornhole tournaments, and we do different hockey sauce competitions and every kind of competition for guys to hang out, have fun. But we tie a charity tie to just about everything we're doing, so guys are always playing and always raising money for that charity throughout the weekend. And then on Sunday is the playoffs, so you could see playoffs that you'll never see take place, such as maybe the Marine Corps team playing an FDNY team here in Boston. Kind of crazy why those two teams would be playing each other out here, but certainly is not unrealistic come April. So Sunday we'll have 9 different we have 9 divisions, so we'll have 9 different championship playoff rounds going on, semifinals and finals. And while that's going on, there also will, in the parking lot, will be a tailgating competition. Firemen are well known for the cooking, and certainly what we like to do is bring that in, and we bring in a TV show, and we actually film a cooking show right from the parking lot and do a little cook-off challenge. And what we do is put the best Firehouse is the best cooks up against each other. And last year we had guys coming in starting the smokers at 4 o'clock in the morning. And also while that's going on, people playing cornhole. We have vendors. We have stuff for the kids to do. We have all kinds of mascots and stuff going on. So this way, there's events going on in and outside of the rink all weekend long just to see who ultimately is the Heroes Cup champion of the division.
That's awesome. Sounds like a very very busy weekend for you and your team of volunteers.
Yeah, we have about 100 volunteers. We are still we do have a volunteer sign up page on our website for those who want to help out, and it is also open to the public for coming in throughout the weekend. Come in as a spectator. We just ask to suggest a donation. We don't put a dollar value to it. We just want people to come, support their military, fire, police, EMS teams. Cheer them on, give these guys the credit they deserve for the weekend. And so we just want to get people to the door. We're not really all that concerned about ticket sales and stuff as much as showing your support for the guys. So absolutely, the whole weekend's open to the public. That's
fantastic. Like I said, I want to start planning my trip down there. I might as well ask you now that I have you. Is it okay to go and possibly get some interviews from these the gentlemen that are participating on the ice?
Absolutely, we'd love to have it.
Awesome. Now the registration is obviously closed right now, correct?
Well, registration is still open. All of our teams, for that matter, are first responder teams, but it's open because right now it's being filled on a waiting list. We are technically sold out at 82 teams, but we do have a pretty active waiting list. And last year we pulled most of our waiting list because some teams ended up getting deployed. I know one of our military teams got deployed 2 weeks before the tournament. They're all in the same unit together, so them getting deployed over to Iraq kind of threw a curveball in the mix. Same thing with the firehouse. Issues can come up, so our waiting list does fill up kind of quick, and we get teams going through. So registration still is open for any fire, police, or military teams out there. All of our teams are 100% fire, police, military background, and each team is actually allowed one civilian position. So it's kind of a unique thing about the tournament that we really try and keep the guys responsible, but at the same time, some of the civilian positions are former NHL guys, either big dollar donors or just the team really needs a goalie. So whatever it might be, whatever chemistry fits for the team, we allow that position, but it does create an interesting dynamic on the ice.
Nice. And the facility is in Marlboro, Mass.
Yep, at the New England Sports Center in Marlboro. That's all events throughout the whole weekend are at the New England Sports Center in Marlboro.
Excellent. Mike, is there anything else that you'd like to plug or website, Facebook, Twitter, anything?
Yep, we're everywhere. Website's heroescuphockey.com. Same thing on Facebook. You can find us at Heroes Cup Hockey Inc. on Facebook and on Twitter as well. We post stuff pretty regularly. We're always trying to be pretty active on social media. Any way to reach out, certainly would love to do with some regular segments leading up to the event with you guys, and talk as much as we can to promote the event.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that, and I also appreciate the fact that you went above and beyond to bring an event like this to the people that really deserve it the most, and that's the people that protect us on a daily basis.
Well, out of true passion for the brother firefighters of mine, so absolute passion of mine. I'd much rather see him at a hockey rink having a couple beers with him than over a funeral. So,
real quick, Mike, are you serving?
Yeah, I'm a full-time firefighter, paramedic in the town of Sudbury, Mass.
Nice. Well, thank you for your service, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, Mike, again, thank you very much, and we will definitely be talking again as we get closer to the event. And like I said, I'd like to come down and watch and hopefully meet you and some of the volunteers.
Yeah, we'll have a good time, Mark. Thank you.
No problem. Take care, Mike.
Bye.
Hey, Bruins fans. I'm actually in the presence of a great Bruins fan that I've been talking to a lot on the Facebook and I believe Twitter, too. His name's Ian Kelly, and he's from the Tampa Bay, Florida area, and glad to have him aboard. We're going to talk a little bit about the game tonight, which was an absolute blowout of the Carolina Hurricanes, and the recent play of the Boston Bruins. So, Ian, I really appreciate you taking the time. It is 11:13 p.m. on a Saturday night, and sir, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, glad to be here. It's my first podcast, so I couldn't really turn it down.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Breaking people in all season long this year, so
Yeah.
glad to help out, man, and break the ice for you to possibly get on some more shows.
Sounds good to me.
So did obviously watch tonight's game, right, against the Carolina Hurricanes?
Oh, yeah.
So what'd you think?
Yeah, I got out of hand pretty quick. Pretty fun time. I wasn't expecting that. That's for sure. I was expecting more of a dogfight.
Yeah, Carolina's been playing actually pretty good as of late. I'm not saying rip roaring the whole league up, but they've been kind of holding their own, and I did not expect that at all. But it was very good to see the top line producing, especially because we've talked about this in the podcast previously. I'm not sure if you heard, but we've talked about the top line being an effective line, but not a producing point wise, and those points have actually been coming from lower levels in the second, third, and fourth line. So to see Bergeron get 4 goals tonight, and to see Brad Marchand also get 4 assists tonight was a huge statement and a great point in the season to get ready for a huge playoff push.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy how that's been working out because you watch those guys play and they've been doing the same exact thing. They're playing just as good every night. They just haven't been putting them in. But I think them playing so well has helped the other lines do well because they're wearing the other guys down. So by the time that the second, third line, fourth line guys are coming out there, they're already tired. Their defense has been stuck in their zone, stuff like that. So it's definitely been contributing, whether they're not really getting there on the points, but they've been definitely showing up.
Being down in Florida, how do you watch? How do you participate in the in whole Bruins Nation on TV?
I used the NHL TV. I started subscribing to that, I think, 2 years ago, and I haven't missed a game. So,
is that expensive?
It's like $120, I think, for the season, which is a little pricey, but getting all the games basically. The only ones I don't get are I don't get NHL Network or the local games. But the local games I watch on regular TV here anyway. So
nice. All right. Let's go back into the beginning of the season when, let's just say, Tuukka Rask and the team weren't doing good. They were pretty much like trying to come off of a playoff season last year, and then coming into a new 2017-18 campaign with not making a ton of moves over the offseason and management believing that this team can actually do better. How did you feel from when the season started to probably about the 15-game mark, and then from there to where we are right now?
Well, over the offseason, I was one of the at least I think one of the few people that wasn't wanting them to make a big move. You see all these people that were wanting, let's get Shattenkirk. That was the big one that was getting floated around a lot. And I was just hoping that we wouldn't get him. So when the Rangers signed him, I was super, super relieved. First 15 games, it was hard to get a real good gauge because we had so many guys in and out of the lineup with all the injuries. But, after that point, when we started getting guys back, you could see progressively almost every time we got someone back, we'd get just a little bit better, a little bit closer to the team we hope to be. But even after all that, I think to this point, we're achieving better than I thought we would at this point. I kind of expected us to be more like a third in the division type, maybe fourth, but obviously with the other teams not playing well and us playing very well, it turned out quite different.
Well, I mean, we're both fans, and we obviously pay close attention to a lot of the hockey personalities that get huge salaries. They were saying that and I was on board too. I'm not sure about you, but I was on board with the Bruins are going to be a fringe playoff team. They're gonna struggle to get as many points as they can and probably end up being in the same situation that they were 2 years prior to them making the Stanley Cup playoffs last season. But the like you mentioned, the injuries and so on. At the beginning of the season, it was tough. And believe it or not, I've said this many times on the Black and Gold Hockey Pod that this is the time, I mean, in October and November are the times for those injuries to happen. And then you can come in and get healthy by December and January and make a serious playoff push. So like, I'm kind of on track with that, but I wasn't on board with the whole, Bruins are going to make they have the team that's going to make the second round. I was more or less saying that they could make it, but more saying that they probably won't make it. But to me, watching this progress and the progression of the younger players that are being installed into this lineup has been very impressive, and it's been blowing my mind. And I'm eating crow. I've been eating crow for like a month and a half, and I'm sick of eating black feathered crap. I'm loving this, Ian. I'm absolutely loving it. I've always been a Bruins fan. I bleed black and gold just like you do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm 42 years old. I just turned 42 last month. How old are you?
28.
Yeah. Okay. So you're 28. Great. All right. But we both understand and we know the trends of this team. So we're not just like some new fan that's just coming into the whole system and just after 2 years and saying I'm rah-rah and this and that. We see the stuff that goes on throughout this organization and we see the trends. So that's one of the reasons why I was very optimistic on a playoff year this year. But this is exciting and it's a really good time to be a Bruins fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And guess what? I don't think you're the only one who's surprised. I feel like the look on Sweeney's face tonight was like a pure satisfaction. I think he knew eventually this would be coming, but I think it's a little ahead of schedule in everybody's eyes. Right. I was hoping for an impact from all the young players, but I didn't think a lot of them would be as good as they are already. Like, I wasn't expecting so much from DeBrusk and Heinen especially. McAvoy, I kind of had high expectations after the playoffs last year because he looked poised to make a move. But Heinen, especially this year, is just blowing me out of the water with his play. Every time he's in the offensive zone forechecking, I feel like something can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I was not on board. I mean, I'm not sure if you know, a friend of the show, Brandon Shea Cohen. We both have had high expectations for Danton Heinen when he was playing for the Denver University. But when he got released, well, not released, when he left school early to become a pro, I thought it was too early. And my friend Brandon was right on top saying, let it ride. And once I saw him in his first 12 games as a Boston Bruin last season, I was kind of like, I told you so. But this is where my boy Brandon comes around and just says, this is why I said let it ride, because now you're seeing his full potential.
Yeah, I think the talent showed last year, but it was he just looked a little bit early. It looked like he was going to need some more time, and he put in that time last year in the AHL and really honed his game. And then it seemed like once he got that first couple points this year, he just never looked back.
Let me ask you about Danton Heinen right now, okay? In his first 12 games, do you think that fans and the hype that he was getting out of Denver and how many people spoke so highly of him when they actually got to see him at development camps? They're in the Restuccia Arena in Wilmington or the new Warrior Ice Arena in Brighton, Mass. Did you have the feeling that he was going to be that type of Frank Vetrano start and then disappointment at the end?
I was definitely afraid of something like that happening, especially after those first 12 games. I mean, I think we all know how Boston fans in general can be. Just any sports fans, really. We're kind of impatient. So sometimes when someone's not successful right away, it kind of like puts a little panic in the back of your head, and some people just roll with it. But I was hopeful. So at the beginning of this year, I wasn't expecting too much, and maybe that's why I've been so impressed with the way he's played. I was definitely not ready to dump on the guy or give up on him, but I wasn't expecting him to have such an impact this season. I figured he'd kind of ease into it a little bit more, but he's just been dominating, I feel.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, and his stats are proving it right now. I mean, I think he's like 3rd to 5th in rookie points, which is absolutely impressive for a second-year player. And it's just great to watch. The best thing about it is he is a big kid, and he doesn't remind me of that prototypical power forward, but he gets to the net with such ease and grace, like he weaves in and out of people just to get to that spot without being hit and so on, or marginally disrupted. You know what I mean? The way he just makes things happen, and he's got a great eye. I love his vision on the ice and his hockey IQ when he knows when to take that shot, and that release is absolutely nasty. But he also knows that with the perfect time to find a teammate that might be available to get that goaltender going side to side and create that better opportunity for that score.
Yeah, absolutely. At first, when I first put him down on the third line after he'd been playing on the first and second, I was a little worried he wasn't going to be able to hang with the physical play that usually comes along with playing those bottom 6 minutes. But I was glad to be very wrong on that. He's handled it great. If anything, he looks even better because he's got the physicality to play against those bigger, tougher guys, but he still has that skill to dominate them at times, which is awesome. Watching that line play is phenomenal. If you didn't know that they were the third line, you would never even assume that. You'd think it was the second line or first line on some teams even.
It's nice to get that support from other areas of that or the organization. I mean, when you can get a role line like that from 1 to 4, that's just huge. And I believe from what I've seen so far in these 4 lines, I see a very offensive depth team that is very rival to what a lot of the Western Coast teams do. Is they don't have that grinder energy line. They have 4 lines of players that can skate and make a very, very big threat to opposing players when it comes to the whole. Literally, teams now that the Bruins play are getting outskated. When last year, the year before that, and the year before that, and maybe many years before that, with the role players of that Merlot line and so on, which had speed, but I'm not sure about the whole skill and talent, they were getting outskated big time. So basically, the Bruins were relying on 3 lines for a long time. I see now they are trying to. I see that the Don Sweeney and scouting staff are finding the players to make this more of a 4-line offensive depth team, and that's exciting. And I'm happy that the Bruins are actually trying to get on board with a lot of the other teams that are already been doing this for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's nice not to see them get left behind when the league is changing. They're rolling with it. It might have been a little bit behind at first, but they're definitely right in it now. And I love. You mentioned the speed, especially on like the old Merlot line. You look at our 4th line now. I mean, the guys like Achari, Corrali, they've got some speed. They're not the slowest guys on the ice. So when they get caught out there against another team's first line, it's not instant panic like it used to be. I remember we'd get that 4th line out and someone else rolls out their first line. It was like, oh god, something bad's going to happen. But I never feel like that now. I don't expect them to score against another team's first line, but they don't make me freak out when I see them out there. It's they can handle themselves in their own zone and get the puck out and then get a change out. And to me, that's huge for keeping the team flowing, because there's been times in the past where certain lines, you see them out there against other players and you're just like, oh man, I'm afraid something bad's going to happen now. And that doesn't happen so much anymore, because the guys can skate with pretty much most of the league.
Absolutely. Let's step back. Let's step back beyond the blue line, and let's talk about the defense now, Ian. What do you think? I mean, I love the addition of McAvoy. I love the addition of, regardless of where the the injury factor happened to Adam McQuaid. Matt Grzelcyk is a huge addition to this team.
Absolutely.
That kid can skate. I praise him so much on the Black and Gold Hockey Pod that I don't want Adam McQuaid back. I mean, am I wrong saying that, or?
No, not at all. I'm a huge McQuaid fan. He's like one of my favorite players on the team, but right now he's absolutely not making it back in the lineup. If I was writing that lineup out every day, he wouldn't be making it in. As much as I like the guy, the way Grzelcyk has been playing, especially with Miller, that balances that pairing out so perfectly. Now each one of our pairs has a puck mover and a defender. And I think that it also puts confidence in Miller, knowing that he's got a guy who can skate as well as Grzelcyk does, because you see him jumping up into the rush a lot more often, or jumping up into the play to pinch in. Before, when you have two guys that are both not the best skaters, not to say that Miller's bad, but when you got two guys that aren't quick, they get a little hesitant, I feel. And I don't think he's got that fear in him at all, because he knows Grzelcyk can get back if he has to. And his skating has been phenomenal back there. He skates his way out of danger without even looking like he's breaking a sweat sometimes. It's awesome. He's one of my favorite new additions this year. Him and Heinen are my top guys.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that, well, a couple seconds ago, that you were a McQuaid fan.
Yes.
Please, with your best knowledge, tell me why. Why do you like McQuaid?
My biggest thing with him is he clears the net fantastically. And earlier in the season, it seemed like we were having a big issue with that right after he went down, after he blocked that shot. I do like that he blocked shots and gets in lanes. He definitely does not have best skating legs out there.
Okay. Are you still there? Oh, I think I lost you, bud. Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, basically just saying I think McQuaid brings a lot more than the stats show. I know he's not a gifted offensive guy, but as a stay-at-home D-man, I feel like he handles himself pretty well most nights. The problem with any D-man, when they do make mistakes, they seem to be amplified because they're the last line of defense. So same thing I feel like people pick on McQuaid for. Sometimes people dump on Krug for it, saying, he gets caught on the wrong side of the puck sometimes and then leaves the goalie out to dry. But that can happen with any goal or any defenseman. So they kind of get, when their mistakes happen, they're amplified versus a forward. But I do think McQuaid brings a lot to the team that doesn't show up on the stat card.
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with what you're saying, and I believe that he adds a huge value to this team when it comes to leadership, when it comes to toughness, when it comes to getting into those dirty areas that a lot of the players like Brandon Carlo, players like Torrey Krug, Miller's going to be involved all the time, but you know what I'm saying. But my thing is like when Don Sweeney re-signed him, he was preaching that he wanted a better transitioning defense, and I kind of bought into what he was saying, and then thinking that, okay, well, if you're saying this, then McQuaid is pretty much out, and then they re-sign him, which I was not happy about. I'm not saying he's not a good player and so on, but when you preach a certain thing, I think you should act on it as soon as possible. But I also believe that the McQuaid re-signing was due to the fact that Sweeney was kind of impatient on letting him go and not being able to get certain assets in return, or wait for developing assets to come up and be in a position of, a season debut. So I do understand where it's coming from, but there's a lot of hockey writers that are way above my pay grade that are saying that this could be the year that Adam McQuaid is either dealt, and it'll free up that cap space that the Bruins are desperately looking for to possibly add maybe a backup goaltender that's kind of going to push Tuukka Rask a little bit, or a forward that a left wing or right wing that they desperately need, the guy that's going to put the puck in with consistent efforts.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being a possibility. I would expect that to happen after the season, though. As we know from last year, you can never have too much depth. We lost a lot of key defensemen in a really poor time last year, and it made a huge difference. So I imagine they'll hang on to him, especially having so much of the season left. Guys like Miller have had injuries in the past, not necessarily that they're his fault, of course, but it's nice to have a dependable guy to be able to lean on if the time comes. But yeah, I definitely could see him being the odd man out. Grzelcyk has played too well to take him out of the lineup, just plain and simple. He's been really, really good this year. I was not expecting that at all from him. So while Heinen was a pleasant surprise of how good he was so quickly this year, Grzelcyk was not even really on my radar to make an impact this year at all.
All right, so with that being said, all right, you got Grzelcyk that's on his last year of his entry-level contract, and you got Adam McQuaid, which is currently under contract in the NHL. Where do you go from here?
If I'm Sweeney, I shop McQuaid. He's the guy that gets traded at the end of the day, at the end of the season, I would say. But I wouldn't move him before the season's over. I don't think you'd have a problem moving a guy like McQuaid because of the leadership qualities you mentioned. He's a little pricey for what he brings, but at the same time, it's not so expensive that you can't send him to a team like Arizona or somebody like that who often is trying to grab guys to get to the salary floor. And he brings a lot. He's one of those intangible players where his value seems like he's being overpaid for. But similar things were said about Kevin Miller when he signed his contract. People were upset that he got his extension at his value, and look what he's doing now. He's been playing great.
Yep, absolutely. I was on board with the whole thing. I was just like, wow. I mean, what an increase. But I mean, what goes on behind closed doors is up to them and so on. And when it comes to money and so on, but I mean, we all can do our own evaluations on a year by year basis and just see that certain people actually don't deserve certain money values. But when it comes down to a market value and needs at the time, both of them were sufficient signings in my opinion, but they were signings of not long in the future of this team. I think they're just more of band-aids until the developing youth can come up through Providence and actually grab a roster spot.
Yep. At the time, they also looked a bit of a redundancy because at the time they were both pretty much the exact same player. At the time, Miller wasn't really jumping in on the offense at all. He was pretty much a stay-at-home guy, just like McQuaid was, gritty, bottom pair guy. But I think Miller's play has evolved quite a bit in the last 2 years. He's really improved in pretty much every facet of the game. And McQuaid is steady McQuaid. Nothing fancy. He's never going to blow you away with much, but he's been consistent at least.
How about now we're going to drop it back to the last line of defense. We got to talk about the goaltending. Tuukka Rask, are you a fan of the show? Have you listened to the Black and Gold Hockey podcast?
Yeah, I've been listening to it. The last few months is when I first started listening to it.
Badass.
I'd actually never listened to any podcast before that.
Oh, thank you very
thank you very
much. Thank you very much for the support. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I try to listen to it every week now. So sometimes I get a little behind, and I'll listen to them both in 1 week or something.
That's why podcasts are so great. You can just listen to them whenever you're ready. But as you know, as an intelligent Bruins fan, Tuukka Rask had his struggles for a better part of the beginning of the season, and then sat and watched from the entrance to the bench. The locker room area where he was the chauffeur to open the door, and that was really bad French there.
I'll let it slide.
Thanks, bud. But what a transition for him to be a 4-game guy that sat on the bench fully dressed and watch his backup. And I say his backup because Tuukka Rask never lost his first starting job. Never. This was just a ploy to get him rolling. And I think it was the best thing that Bruce Cassidy could ever have done, is sit him, make him look, and it was early enough in the season to make this very effective. Because look at what happened now. This guy is on an absolute roll. He is leading the league right now from going from a 6-7 record to begin the season. And I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe it's 11-0-1 with a one
something like that. Yeah.
With a 1.46 goals against average and a .940 save percentage. And since that time, it's been unbelievable. And I think that this is a great time for him to wake up. And I also think it's a great time for them to also see the efforts that Anton Khudobin have done. And I've not been a Khudobin fan since he was since he came to the Bruins from Minnesota. I was not a fan when he came there, and then he came down. Not a big, you know what I mean? I was not a fan at all.
He was his first tour with the team. I thought he was a solid backup. He was a scary backup, though, and he's still a scary guy to watch sometimes. He does not look controlled sometimes. Sometimes it looks like he's flopping out there, but he makes it work somehow. And when they first re-signed him to the 2-year deal, I wasn't actually hating it. I thought the price was a little high, but I wasn't against the signing. I did think it was weird that they gave him 2 years. And then obviously last year he had a really poor first, 3 quarters of the season.
Yeah, but
so it was looking like, oh man, this is going to be the worst contract. But then he pulled out of it towards the end and was real solid towards the end, and then carried that over to this year. So I've been really happy with the way he's been playing this year.
To give him absolute credit, I believe he was one of the players on that 21 or 20 bench roster that was a key opponent to the Bruins making the playoffs last season, like getting those last. Scratching for those last 4 or 5 points to get, lock it down. I think he was definitely involved. But like we've said so many times on the podcast, the goalie market looks like it's going to go up. So I think re-signing him is going to be kind of difficult because he's going to want term for his age. He's going to want more money for his age because sooner or later he's not going to be able to do this anymore. And he's going to want some kind of reliability in retirement. So these are the tough negotiation times you have with an aging goaltender. I think he's like 30-something years old, 32, 33 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So within the next 5 years, he's going to be done with this, or either that, go back to Europe and play in the KHL and make a ton of money. Regardless of his situation or his decision, I'm not sure if the right idea is to re-sign him. I mean, I would actually have more faith in re-signing Zdeno Chara for 1 more year than I would with re-signing Anton Khudobin. And the reason why I say that is because Zane McIntyre played unbelievable last season in the American Hockey League, and I'm not sure if you know this, but I watched every Providence Bruins game. Last year, he hit lights out. This year, very disappointing. And this is year 1 of his 2-year deal. And if they don't want to sign Khudobin to an extension and kind of like walk McIntyre into the backup role, I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical of the whole thing.
It's definitely going to be a tough decision to make at the end of the season or during the off season of what to do about that goalie situation. Do you take that gamble and hope that McIntyre is your guy as a backup next year and run the risk of him not performing, or do you sign somebody, maybe not necessarily Khudobin, but another kind of veteranish journeyman type goaltender just in case, or maybe somebody in between? Because I don't see Khudobin coming back next year unless they can sign him for a similar price now to just 1 year, which I cannot imagine he would do. But you never know. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, and bringing in McIntyre would be a hell of a cap-friendly deal, too, for a team that is looking to have money or wiggle room to have in certain areas in front of goaltending. Because they already have, they already got Rask lined up for another couple more years at $7 million.
Absolutely.
So there's other areas of this team that need to be addressed. I do want to see a better goaltender or a goaltender to come in there and just blow my mind away, but I also want them to stop paying for a top 6 winger that could put the puck in the net on a consistent basis. So
yeah, just real quick, I did pull up some goalie statistics real quick for you.
Look at you, a guy that a Bruins fan. Like you sure you never podcasted before?
I've never done it before.
Do you have your own studio?
No, I just have my computer and a game room set up and a headset.
That's a studio, brother.
Hey. So since the beginning of December 1st, nobody has more wins than Tuukka Rask. There's 2 guys, Holtby and Vasilevsky, are both tied. And Rask has a .956 save percentage in that time with a 1.2 goals against average.
Oh.
Over 12 games.
Wow, I was way off.
That is insane. That surprised me, too, because that 1.4-ish is what I was expecting, but I think that was including the previous game or two before that. He's got 2 shutouts. Vasilevsky's got 4, so that's better, but I mean, whatever. Same amount of wins. No losses. None of the other goalies can say that, except for the 1 overtime loss. But yeah, those are crazy numbers. Those are video game numbers, better than video game numbers.
Right.
And it's just unbelievable. I've never seen anybody play so good for, that's now, 5 weeks worth of time. That's a long way to go for playing that well.
All right, so here's my last question. Maybe not, but we'll see what happens. Do you think the way that Anton Khudobin, because I'm thinking about writing an article about this, and I actually have this on my dry erase board for a potential article in the future. I mean, maybe you'll entice me to write it. But do you think that if the way that Tuukka Rask keeps playing, and at this particular time in the season, which is January, they give Rask a little bit of rest and start having a little more confidence in Anton Khudobin, do you think that there's a potential, because the Bruins are in top 3 in the goals against average as a team stat, folks. Do you think that there's a possibility that this Bruins team could walk away with a Jennings trophy?
I don't see why it wouldn't be possible. Both guys, especially look at the beginning of the year, the way Khudobin was playing, it was phenomenal. No one expected that from a guy, especially a guy like him. He'd been consistently average pretty much his whole career, and he just was carrying the team for a short while Tuukka was struggling. He was there to hold it together. And now they're both playing really well. Tonight we had another, you don't notice it because of the score, but Khudobin was still really good tonight. He still faced 28 shots or something like that and led in the 1 power play goal. He played a really good game, and I think people didn't really notice that because of how well our offense was going. It's kind of hard to pay attention to your defense when you're stomping in the offensive zone. But I think he played real solid again. He's been pretty consistent.
My biggest thing about the Bruins team is offense, and this is what I'm talking about, is when you put up 7 goals, you give the goaltender the option to give up 3-4 bad goals, regardless of Khudobin, Rask, whatever. But if you can put that many goals in the net, if you put 4 or 5 goals per game, you're giving the goaltenders a better chance to win all the time, and a team win. Hockey is what it is. It's a sport. When you win 2-1 and you lose 2-1 or whatever, you know what I mean? It's a tight game. But when you can put that bar so far ahead of you and have leeway to make a little kind of mistakes, even if they won 7-4 tonight, I'd still be freaking thrilled. But that's my thing about, just creating that offense to be there for that defense just in case something happens. Because I know in the past, I'm an old man. I've seen this happen so many times that the Bruins, they're a 2-1 type of freaking team for the longest time, and then they blow it. But when you create so many more points ahead of a team, you have that kind of relaxing period when the defense can actually be like, okay, we gave up 2 shitty goals, but guess what? We won 6-4.
Right. And yeah, I think that was one of the most impressive things about the game tonight is I feel like they never took their foot off the gas. They, I think I shouldn't say that. In the third period, they weren't trying as hard offensively, but they stayed responsible and they played the puck well in their own zone and in the neutral zone the whole time. They didn't give up easy possession. They weren't just dumping the puck. They kept playing their game. They stuck with it, and I thought that was awesome because I always hated when I'd see a game where we have a high score and you see we give up a couple soft goals later on in the game because they don't really matter. I always felt bad for the goalies because I don't know why. I've always liked stats for a lot of sports. So it's like, oh man, they're killing the guy's stats out there. So I like that they played solid the whole time and showed that they can keep it up. I mean, that was as far as I'm concerned, one of the closest full 60s you can get.
So, all right. This is definitely my last question. Patrice Bergeron has got to be a Hockey Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with his 4-goal effort tonight, he passed 700 points, and
yeah,
I
blew
believe
right past it.
yeah. What's he got? 702 now.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, he was phenomenal tonight.
Absolutely ridiculously phenomenal. And a first round ballot in my opinion, but he is just a consummate leader, and I believe that he is bringing this from the 2011 Stanley Cup and 2010 season when he was with Mark Recchi. And I talked to Craig Eagles, which is he's a scout for the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and he's a TV color analyst for Rogers TV. And he was telling me about Patrice and so on, and how him and Mark Recchi were just consummate pros. Like, they were feeding off each other, and at the time Recchi was the leader and so on. And when they won the cup, Patrice was actually asking about him coming back for another year. I think that moment in those 2 years, that really installed a serious leadership role in Patrice Bergeron's career, and something that has moved on from that time into today with the insertion of all these talented young players that came in. And Ian, I'm going to tell you something right now. When the season started, I only saw Anders Bjork maybe Anders Bjork and McAvoy. So there's 2 rookies that I thought would make this roster. But because of those damn injuries, 6 or 7 got inserted. So I didn't see that happening. And I'm absolutely blown away. But I think that with all those rookies that came in for those injuries, a player like Patrice Bergeron was there for that mental leadership that they needed, and a calming point to say it's okay to make a mistake, but learn from it.
Right. And it's funny you bring that up because I remember reading an article, I believe, a while back about how Mark Recchi just kind of knew that Bergeron had that leadership quality in him. It was almost like he unlocked it, gave him the key, and he kind of rolled with it. And you can see that same effect that Bergeron has on younger players. All these young guys that come up, they want to take pride in that 200-foot game like he does, and I think that's in part because of his leadership. And all those guys, they got to look up to him. Even one of the things with Pasternak when he first came up was, he wasn't a great two-way player. He was more of an offensive type guy, but he seems to have worked hard on that, developing that two-way play, and he's been much better back-checking and things like that than he has been in the past. And that showed this year when they had, went 12 games or however many games it was without giving up an even strength goal on that line. I think it was all three guys they're all buying into it. They never give up on the puck no matter where it was, no matter where they were in relation to the puck. They always were full 100% effort. And I think it's one of those things that gets passed on from leader to leader. And I think slowly and surely Bergeron's adding that into the younger guys as well. Obviously, he's not going to be retiring anytime soon, hopefully. So, plenty of time to add it into some more young guys too.
Yeah, but I mean, just real quick, going back to the to talk about Mark Recchi. I mean, the guy played with Mario Lemieux. He played with Rod Brindamore. Those two guys. I mean, they installed in him a certain amount of trust and leadership that he brought on to a person like Patrice Bergeron and made him an even better player than he is today. So. I total kudos to a guy like that, and to come in here for 2 years and make things happen like that is just amazing. So
it's a heck of an impact to give on somebody in just 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, it's just amazing how the whole inside. I mean, I am not a full-time reporter. I do this. It's a labor of love for me. I have a 40-hour a week job. And I actually, the wife's just talking to me. She's like, "Who am I talking to?" But this is a labor of love. Everything I do here, I do not get paid for, so I'm not in the locker room. I'm not anywhere near it.
Right.
I make the time to go on my personal vacations to be at development camp and so on. But there's no way I can understand what is going on and the feeling that's going on. This is why I have people like Rhonda. This is why I have people soon. I can't say anything right now because I have a guest lined up for Monday, which is supposed to be secret, but I'm going to come out. But these people are in there. They see these players. They see the emotion, and this is something good. It's something positive happened, and it's a lot earlier than I thought.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think a little bit of the same type of thing is happening with Chara and the young guys like McAvoy. Chara, as much as I know some people don't want him to come back next year because of his age, the way he's playing, I definitely would extend him on a year-to-year basis. I wouldn't give him like a multi-year deal or anything like that, but the way he's playing, not even based on reputation, just ignoring the past, I feel like the way he's played this year has warranted the opportunity to come back next year. As long as he keeps the way he's playing up this year, he's been awesome. He's looked better this year, I feel like, than he has the last 2 or 3. And the knowledge and the experience that he can pass on to these young guys, I think makes a huge impact. And I think that's part of why McAvoy has been so good so quickly. And we saw it last year, too, with Carlo. He made a huge impact on these young guys. And if we're expecting maybe another young guy to come up next year, maybe, I don't know if Lindgren will be ready or Lauzon or somebody like that. That could be huge for those young guys, too, to get more learning out of Chara, who's, one of the best defensemen of his generation.
All right, Ian, my friend, I have to end this. As much as I really had a great time talking to you, and I can actually talk to you for another 5-6 hours, man. Very good, first time on the podcast. I got to give you a ton of credit.
I appreciate the opportunity. Absolutely,
and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about a fan's perspective on what's going on with the Bruins at this particular time of the year. Please let our listeners know where we can find you on social media.
Right now I'm pretty much only active on Facebook. I do have a Twitter, but I honestly never use the thing. Might start doing that more, but I'm kind of lazy on the social media, so I'm pretty much just on Facebook. My Twitter, in case I do start using it, is Halcyon Ion. It's HALCYI0N.
Awesome.
As of now, not super active on it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate your fan perspective, and definitely would love to have you back at the end of the season to get another perspective of how your feelings are about this team at the end of the season.
Be glad to be on anytime.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. You can follow the guys on Twitter at blackandgold277, at Court Lalonde, and at Rob40Bruins. You can also send us an email to the show's account at blackandgoldhockeyblog@gmail.com.